There are two things which separate Tajikistan from Afghanistan: the Amu River and 1,300 kilometres of barbed wire fencing under Russian control. Tajikistan may have declared its independence, but as far as Moscow is concerned, this Central Asian nation is still the edge of the empire. Today, 4 years after their country was plunged into civil war, a handful of Tajik refugees are coming home. They no longer face the wholesale slaughter which drove them so desperately into strife-torn Afghanistan. But Tajikistan, the poorest of the former Soviet states, teeters on a knife edge, and everyone is jumpy. Today in Tajikistan, there is no guarantee of safety or security, particularly for the returnees. These people are Ghamis, members of the Gham regional group, the backbone of Tajikistan's Islamic-led opposition. Essentially, they are the losers in this war. For years, Ghamis like Saeed have dared not return home, fearful of reprisals by another regional group, the pro-communist Kulabis, who seized government in December 1992 with Russian support.
Заставляет что-нибудь или угрожает, или убьют, уничтожит. Поэтому боялись, возвратили.
The returnees still face a lot of tension from the government. I met many families.
Yesu Jahangiri Janot has been monitoring human rights abuses here for the past 2 years.
However, I would say that in the last year, because of lack of centralized forces, no centralization in Tajikistan, many incidents of abuses have been, unfortunately, on the rise, in fact, in Tajikistan. This has meant that not only in terms of the basic freedoms of the press, of expression, but also systematic abuse against a specific segment of the society.
There's no doubt the returnees come under close scrutiny, physical and political. We were allowed to film their medical checkup, but not their interviews with national security officers. During these, returnees are grilled for any information about opposition forces operating from bases within Afghanistan. Tomorrow, these people will make the final journey to their villages, or what remains of them. For Saeed's mother, it will be an exercise not so much in hope as faith. The seed for Tajikistan's brutal civil war was sown 70 years ago, when Stalin carved up Central Asia. He created a series of artificial states with no regard for ethnic and regional groupings. After the Soviet Union crumbled in 1991, long-suppressed tensions flared. Tajikistan became a battleground as pro-communist Kulabis and Islamic-backed Ghamis fought for power. In little more than a year, 50,000 people were killed and nearly 1 million Tajiks, a fifth of the population, rendered homeless. This is where the civil war erupted in 1992, Katlong region in southern Tajikistan. It was here around Kurgan Tubay that some of the worst fighting took place. As you can see, villages were completely destroyed. Thousands of people fled in terror, and those who didn't were killed, often in the most brutal of ways, decapitated, mutilated, in extreme cases, skinned alive. It's peaceful here now, but the war continues. Only this time, it's on a different front. In the Soviet-named May the First village, the immediate enemy is starvation. Without the flour, sugar and oil provided by the World Food Programme, many here would have nothing to eat.
برای خلق ما همه یاردم تشکیلات دولت‌های متحده 100% ضروره لازمه اگر همه ملل متحد یاردمش نمیشید اگر خلق‌های ما به هلاکت دچار میشدن حالا شما چند کس میگید
Bohigul Safarova is the head of this community. When war broke out, it was the stronghold of Islamic opposition leader Saeed Abdullah Nouri. Today, it's the domain of widowed returnees. Most work on the state cotton farms, but few are getting paid.
انا به خلق‌ها مزد معاششان داده نمیشه من در دوام 5 ماهی که عذر مهمه در دوام 5 ماهی که خلق تا امروز کار کرده اومده است یک بار 500 میگرفتن خلاص پنسیونرها میگیرن نفقه‌شون
That's not enough to buy even one bag of flour. The World Food Programme is appealing for 30,000 tonnes of food, but even if successful, that will help feed only 1/10 of those in need.
Well, we've had many cases of people who are really desperate. We've had reports of people committing suicide. We've had even reports of people wanting to sell off their children. It sounds terrible, but this has occurred.
"100 kilometres to the north, in the capital, Dushanbe, the government of Tajikistan sits in splendid isolation. While claiming the war has cost the country $7 billion, the Prime Minister would have us believe Tajikistan has turned the corner.
Значит, я думаю, уровень в этом году падения остановился, и мы идем на опережение или повышение эффективности работ производства.
You say that the government's managed to stop the economic decline, so why haven't you been able to pay salaries?
Что мы где-то на днях уже пойдем на перекрытие не только, скажем, месячной зарплаты, а и будем потихоньку закрывать и ту задолженность, которая у нас имеется.
The reality, however, is that the government's priority is maintaining its tenuous grip on power. It has effectively lost control of the eastern half of the country, where it's battling opposition forces just 150 kilometres from the capital. Cracks are also widening within the government's own ranks. The only reason the government still controls Dushanbe is because of Russia's military and financial backing. Even so, the atmosphere here is tense. Being seen to support either side could cost you your life. Journalists are a favourite target for attack. Ukrainian-born Yuri Kushko, who's been working in Tajikistan for 13 years, has lost many friends and colleagues.
Up to 40 journalists have been shot dead since May 1991. Militia and prosecution didn't investigate all cases properly, and none of the killers have been found and punished.
Today, even though Tajikistan is independent, Moscow is reluctant to let it go. The fear, whether real or imagined, is that if Russia withdraws, Tajikistan may become a radical Islamic state, a tinderbox just waiting to ignite the whole of Central Asia. Islam is undergoing something of a renaissance in Tajikistan. Suppressed under Soviet rule, today religious leaders, nationalists and Democrats see rebuilding the faith as integral to restoring Tajik identity and culture. Together, these groups constitute the opposition. While not initially fundamentalist, it is becoming more radical as the conflict drags on. To find the opposition, you need to travel to Afghanistan, a country racked by war for 15 years. We went with the United Nations, the easiest way to get past the Russian border guards. It's from Mujahideen leaders here that the Tajik opposition draws much of its support. Iran, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan are other benefactors. At the height of Tajikistan's conflict, 60,000 refugees took shelter in camps in Afghanistan. Today, as many as 1/3 remain. At Saki camp, run by the United Nations, Islam is an important part of life. Most of the children's schooling is spent studying the Arabic alphabet and the Quran. The Tajik government claims the Islamic opposition is indoctrinating the refugees and recruiting fighters. It wants the camps closed immediately. But few people here are willing to go home. Some with very good reason. Kori Sultan is a man with a price on his head. Spokesman for the Islamic opposition and a close personal friend of its leader, Saeed Abdullah Nouri, now based in Tehran.
میفهمم که اگر من به وطن بروم تحت تهدید و حتی که قتل قرار میگیرم در اونجا.
For the people of Tajikistan, whether in Afghanistan or at home, there will be no quick return to normal life. The government and opposition are locked in a stalemate, both unwilling to back down. The only hope is that Russia tires of the conflict and uses its considerable influence to force a compromise. If not, it may well help create the very monster it sought to prevent, a second Afghanistan, even closer to its doorstep.